The cold that winter was unforgiving, a biting wind that clawed through every layer, sinking into bones and spirit alike. On the edge of a quiet town, where the horizon stretched wide and the nights grew darker than the blackest pitch, a woman named Clara found something she never expected. A man frozen by misfortune, barely clinging to life behind her barn. His breath came in shallow clouds, his eyes dull but flickering with a desperate spark. Most would have turned away, but Clara saw something beyond the frost, a story that begged to be rewritten. She didn't know where he came from. The man was a stranger, silent except for labored gasps, his clothes tattered and soaked from the icy snow. The townsfolk whispered of hardships, of lost fortunes, of unforgiving trails where men vanished like ghosts. But Clara didn't listen to rumors or fear. When she saw him trembling and fading, she opened her barn door wide, offering warmth where others had offered only cold shoulders. It was a simple act, but in a world hardened by survival, it was revolutionary. That night, the fire in her hearth wasn't just to warm frozen flesh. It was a beacon of mercy in a place where kindness often came with a price. Clara wrapped the man in blankets woven from years of quiet struggle, fed him stew made from what little she had, and listened to the silence between his ragged breaths. In that humble barn, where hay smelled sweet and hope smelled sweeter, something began to heal, not just the man, but the very soul of the land around them. By dawn, the man was still weak, but alive. And, as the sun climbed over frost-covered fields, whispers began to travel faster than the cold wind. Stories of Clara's courage spread like wildfire through the valleys and hills. Within days, what had started as a single act of compassion turned into a movement. A caravan, laden with gifts, food, and gratitude, made its way to Clara's farm, surrounding her fence in a testament to the power of one person's kindness. This is not just a tale of survival, but of a community awakened, of how opening one door in the coldest time can open many hearts, and of how, even in the harshest places, humanity can bloom again when someone dares to care beyond themselves. What followed next would change Clara's life, and the lives of everyone who believed in the quiet strength of compassion. Clara was a woman forged by the harshness of the West, a widow who had seen her share of storms both in the sky and in her heart. Her farm, perched on the edge of the prairie, was modest but steady, held together by grit and the memory of a love lost too soon. She was known to keep to herself, tending her animals and fields with a quiet strength that few dared to challenge. Yet behind that resolute exterior, Clara carried a heart large enough to shelter more than just crops and cattle. When the frozen man appeared, it was her humanity that outshone the bitter cold. The man was barely more than a shadow when Clara first spotted him, curled near the old oak beside her barn. His clothes were torn and soaked, his skin pale as winter moonlight. At first, she thought he might be another drifter passing through, but something deeper, a fragile life clinging to the edge, called her closer. Without hesitation, she opened her barn door wide, stepping into the night and into a story far larger than herself. That single act, simple and uncalculated, would ripple across the land in ways no one could have foreseen. Inside the barn, Clara set to work. She stoked the fire until flames roared to life, their warmth breathing new hope into the man's frozen frame. She wrapped him in blankets handed down from her mother, cooked broth from the last of her root vegetables, and kept vigil through the longest night she'd ever known. The man, whom she later learned was named Samuel, drifted between unconsciousness and fragile awareness, clutching at life with a desperation that stirred a fierce protectiveness in Clara. In that humble shelter, two strangers became lifelines for each other. The night stretched long, but by morning, Samuel's breath was steadier. The fire's glow illuminated a small smile as he opened his eyes, weak but alive. Clara knew the road ahead would be difficult, for him, for her, and for the cold world beyond her barn walls. But this first sunrise was a promise that life, however battered, still had a chance. And with that chance, Clara found a renewed purpose that would pull her out of loneliness and into the heart of something extraordinary. News of Clara's deeds spread quickly. What had been a quiet act of mercy in a forgotten barn grew into a beacon of hope that called to the weary and the lost. Neighbors who had once turned away began leaving food and blankets by her gate. The blacksmith offered tools without charge. Farmers sent wagons loaded with supplies. It was as if the land itself had decided to repay Clara's kindness tenfold, transforming her barn from a refuge into a gathering place where the cold was fought not just with fire, but with the warmth of community. The caravan that arrived the following week was unlike anything the town had seen in years. Wagons creaked under the weight of provisions, bales of hay, barrels of salted meat, bolts of cloth, and crates overflowing with canned goods. Men and women, young and old, had come together, inspired by a single story of a woman who refused to let another soul perish alone. They circled Clara's farm, forming a human fence stronger than any built of wood or wire, a shield born of shared resolve. Among the crowd were faces once unfamiliar, now bound by a common thread of compassion. A mother cradled a baby swaddled in a hand-knit shawl. A group of cowboys brought blankets they had traded for at the nearest trading post. An elderly couple carried a basket of fresh eggs and wild honey. This was no mere delivery of goods. It was a collective act of redemption, a community answering a call they hadn't heard until Clara's courage rang out like a bell in the wilderness. Inside the barn, Clara and Samuel worked side by side, tending to the needs of newcomers and old friends alike. The man who had arrived frozen and forgotten became a symbol not of weakness, but of resilience. Each day, his strength grew, as did the connections between the people gathered around Clara's fire. The barn was no longer just shelter from the cold. It was a sanctuary for healing broken bodies and bruised spirits. Clara found herself changing too. The walls of her solitude began to crumble as friendships blossomed in the warmth of shared stories and laughter. She learned names and histories, joys and sorrows, weaving them into a tapestry that transformed her farm into a home for many. The kindness she had offered out of instinct now returned to her multiplied, carried by hands and hearts she once thought distant and cold. But even amid this newfound hope, challenges remained. The West was never gentle, and the harsh reality of the seasons reminded them that survival required more than goodwill. Yet, in every hardship, the people around Clara's barn found strength and unity. They repaired fences, helped with harvests, and kept watch through long nights. Together, they discovered that sometimes the greatest gift isn't shelter from the storm, but the promise that you won't face it alone. The days stretched longer and the snow slowly melted into muddy trails, but the spirit that had gathered around Clara's barn only grew stronger. People who once passed by without a glance now lingered, sharing meals, stories, and songs beneath the rough-hewn beams. Children played with homemade toys while elders traded tales of times when kindness was currency and every hand was a helping one. The barn, once a place of solitude, had become a beacon, a reminder that even in the harshest lands, humanity could thrive. Samuel, once frail and silent, found his voice again. He spoke softly at first, sharing fragments of a life before the frost, of lost family, of dreams deferred, and of the unforgiving path that had brought him to Clara's door. His words carried weight, teaching those around him that survival was more than flesh and bone. It was hope held tightly against the cold. And in his recovery, others saw a reflection of their own struggles, and the power of mercy to heal invisible wounds. Clara never sought recognition for what she had done. To her, it was simply the right thing, no more, no less. But the town had other plans. At the next gathering, a group of neighbors presented her with a hand-carved wooden plaque, etched with a single word, sanctuary. It was a quiet honor, born not from grand ceremony, but from deep respect. Clara accepted it with a nod and a smile, her eyes glistening with the knowledge that her barn had become more than shelter. It was a home for souls. As spring edged into summer, the barn's influence spread beyond the farm. Travelers heard whispers of the place where a woman's kindness sparked a caravan of generosity. Some came seeking refuge, others came to offer it. Farmers brought fresh produce. Hunters shared their catch. Craftsmen mended shoes and tools. And through it all, Clara and Samuel stood side by side, not just survivors of the cold, but guardians of a promise made beneath frost and fire. Yet, beneath the growing light, shadows of the past lingered. Samuel's memories haunted him, the faces he'd lost, the roads that had betrayed him. But Clara's presence grounded him, reminding him that healing was a journey, not a destination. Together, they faced the long road ahead, knowing that the barn's doors would remain open, not just for shelter from the storm, but for the hope that sometimes the coldest nights birth the brightest dawns. The community that had blossomed around Clara's barn soon became a force to reckon with. Neighbors who once kept to themselves found strength and shared purpose. The blacksmith began teaching young men and women how to forge tools that would last a lifetime. The schoolteacher organized lessons beneath the open sky when the barn grew too crowded. Even the preacher, moved by the outpouring of goodwill, held services by the fire, reminding all that faith is often found in acts of kindness rather than words alone. The barn itself became a symbol of resilience and compassion, its walls bearing the marks of every hand that helped build, mend, or simply rest within. It held laughter, tears, and prayers, whispers of forgiveness, and the unspoken promise that no one would face the wilderness alone. Clara's farm was no longer just her home. It was the heart of a community, rewriting the story of survival into one of shared hope. One evening, a fierce storm rolled through, threatening to undo all they had built. Winds tore at roofs, and rain hammered the earth like drums of war. Yet, inside the barn, voices rose in unison, singing old songs, sharing stories, offering comfort. The storm battered the land, but it could not break the bonds forged in warmth and trust. When dawn came, the damage was clear, but so was the determination to rebuild, stronger and more united than ever. In the months that followed, Clara and Samuel led efforts to fortify the barn and the surrounding fences. They organized work parties and welcomed newcomers with open arms, ensuring that the shelter would stand through many more winters. Samuel's past became less of a shadow and more of a foundation, a reminder that even the most broken can rise when given care and opportunity. The barn was no longer a refuge from cold. It was a home for second chances. And through it all, Clara remained the steadfast heart of this new chapter. Her courage in opening her barn to a frozen stranger had sparked a chain of compassion that none could have predicted. What began as a quiet act of mercy had grown into a legacy of community and hope, proof that sometimes the simplest choice to help another can change the course of many lives forever. With summer in full bloom, the farm was alive with activity and laughter, sounds that once seemed distant in the quiet of Clara's solitude. Children ran barefoot through fields of wildflowers, their laughter carried on the warm breeze like a promise. Women gathered in the barn to bake bread and sew quilts, sharing stories that wove the fabric of their newfound family. Men worked side by side, repairing fences and tending crops, their sweat a testament to renewed purpose. The barn had transformed from place of shelter to the heart of a thriving community. Samuel, now strong and steady, had become more than a survivor. He was a symbol of resilience. He taught others what he had learned, that hope could be rekindled even from the coldest despair. His hands, once trembling, now built alongside the others, crafting not just shelter but a future. Each plank he nailed, and each fence he mended was a step away from the shadows of his past and into the light of belonging. His story inspired those who doubted the power of kindness and second chances. Yet beneath the joy, Clara bore the weight of countless memories, the losses she had endured, the loneliness she had fought. But she no longer carried them alone. The community she helped nurture stood beside her, their strength a balm to her soul. When the barn doors creaked open at night, it was no longer just her home, but a sanctuary for all who needed refuge from the unforgiving world beyond the farm's borders. One crisp evening, under a sky freckled with stars, Clara and Samuel stood by the fence, watching the caravan of wagons and horses that had gathered. Gifts from neighbors, friends, and even strangers, food, tools, blankets, all piled high in a testament to the ripple effect of one act of compassion. The caravan was not just a delivery. It was a celebration of unity, of a town transformed by empathy and action. As they stood in the soft glow of lanterns, Clara realized something profound. Opening her barn had opened a door not just for a frozen man, but for an entire community to rediscover its heart. The cold that once defined the land no longer held dominion over their spirits. Because when one person dares to care beyond themselves, they ignite a fire that warms countless souls, sometimes for a lifetime. The seasons continued their cycle, each one marking growth not just in nature, but in the people who called Clara's farm home. Samuel found purpose in mentoring the youth who gathered at the barn, teaching them skills to survive and thrive in a world as unpredictable as the prairie wind. Clara's wisdom became the foundation upon which many rebuilt their lives, her quiet strength a beacon guiding others through hardship. Word of the farm's transformation spread beyond the town's borders, drawing visitors from miles away who sought refuge, guidance, or simply a place where kindness still flourished. Some came with heavy burdens, others with empty hands, but all left with renewed hope and a sense of belonging. The barn's walls, weathered by time, bore witness to miracles born not of magic, but of unwavering humanity. Despite the hardships still faced, the community faced them together. When drought threatened the crops, neighbors shared water and labor without hesitation. When illness swept through, the barn became a makeshift clinic, with those who could care stepping forward to tend the sick. Through every trial, the bonds forged in that humble barn grew stronger, proving that unity and compassion could weather even the fiercest storms. Clara and Samuel, bound by shared history and unspoken promises, found solace in each other's company. Their journey from strangers to family reflected the larger story unfolding around them, a testament to the power of empathy to heal wounds both visible and unseen. In their partnership, the true meaning of home was revealed, a place where hearts open and no one is left out in the cold. As twilight settled over the prairie, the barn stood tall, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring spirit of the West. Its doors remained open, inviting all who sought shelter not just from the elements, but from the loneliness that too often accompanies the frontier. And in that openness lay the promise that kindness, once given, multiplies beyond measure. The barn had become much more than just a shelter from the cold. It had transformed into a sanctuary for lost souls seeking warmth, not only for their bodies, but for their spirits. Clara's courage in opening her doors had sparked a movement, a rekindling of a forgotten humanity across the sprawling, often merciless prairie. People who once lived behind walls of suspicion and silence now found themselves drawn together by shared stories, shared struggles, and a quiet, powerful knowledge that they were no longer alone. Long after the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows grew long, the flickering lanterns inside that barn cast a glow that stretched far beyond the timber and hay. It reached into the hearts of every weary traveler, every weary neighbor, whispering a promise that kindness could outlast even the coldest of winters. Samuel, whose frailty had once made him nearly invisible in the harsh landscape, had blossomed into a pillar of strength within the community. His transformation was a testament to the power of compassion, how one act of mercy could breathe life in the most broken of souls. He labored tirelessly alongside the others, repairing fences, helping to harvest the fields, and mentoring the younger boys who arrived seeking guidance and hope. With every hand he extended and every lesson he taught, he was paying forward the gift Clara had given him. His story rippled outward, inspiring others to find the courage to open their own doors and hearts, reminding the town that even in the toughest land, humanity's warmth was a force to be reckoned with. Yet, beneath the surface of this new community blossomed from frost and desperation, there were moments of quiet reflection and raw vulnerability. Clara, though a figure of unwavering strength to those around her, often sat alone under the vast night sky, the weight of past losses pressing heavy on her heart. The grief of the love she had lost and the loneliness she once endured settled like a shadow around her, but no longer consumed her. In those moments, she found solace in the knowledge that her small act had ignited a wildfire of hope and connection, and that she was no longer bearing her burdens in isolation. The community she helped nurture had become her family, and their shared resilience was a balm for old wounds. In the days that followed, as the prairie began to green and the wildflowers pushed through thawing soil, Clara's farm became a crossroads for many seeking refuge from their own storms. People brought stories of hardship and survival, but also of gratitude and renewal. The barn was filled with voices singing old songs and new ones, laughter mixing with tears in a symphony of rebirth. It was here, amid the hay and dust, that the frontier's harshness softened, a place where even the coldest nights were met with hands clasped in fellowship, and where the warmth of human kindness burned bright enough to outshine any darkness. Through all of this, Clara and Samuel stood as living proof that the most profound change often begins with a single, selfless act. By opening her barn to a man on the brink of death, Clara opened the hearts of an entire community, reminding them of the power that lies within each of us to heal, to hope, and to rebuild. Their story is a powerful testament to the enduring spirit of the West, a land that demands strength, but rewards those who choose compassion. It is a legacy woven through time, carried forward in the voices, actions, and hearts of all who walk that rugged, beautiful land. As the seasons turned once more and the heat of summer gave way to the crisp bite of autumn, the barn and its growing community faced new challenges that tested the very foundations of their resilience. Drought swept across the prairie, drying up wells and wilting crops that many depended on to survive. Yet in the face of this hardship, The people who had gathered around Clara's farm refused to falter. They banded together like a tightly woven rope, pooling what little water they had, sharing the last of their food, and working side by side to save what they could. The barn became more than a shelter. It was a symbol of unwavering unity, proof that even the harshest trials could be weathered when hearts beat as one. Samuel took on a new role during this time, not only as a laborer, but as a mentor and leader. He guided the community through days of scarcity with patience and wisdom born of his own journey from brokenness to strength. He organized efforts to ration supplies fairly, taught younger hands how to conserve water and tend dying plants, and offered words of encouragement when despair threatened to take hold. His transformation, from the fragile man Clara found in the snow to the steady figure who now inspired hope, embodied the profound power of human kindness to reshape lives and landscapes alike. Meanwhile, Clara's quiet leadership continued to anchor the community. Her knowledge of the land and seasons became invaluable, as did her unwavering faith in the people she had brought together. She knew that the true strength of their community was not in fences or barns, but in their shared determination to survive and thrive against all odds. And in her moments of solitude, she found comfort in the laughter of children playing nearby, in the crackling of the fire, and in the certainty that the barn's open door was a beacon of hope that would outlast even the toughest drought. Word of the barn's resilience began to spread further, drawing visitors who came not only to offer aid, but to witness the remarkable transformation born from a single act of compassion. Traders brought supplies, neighbors sent seeds and tools, and volunteers arrived eager to lend their hands to the cause. The caravan of gifts that had once surrounded Clara's fence returned, this time laden with offerings to sustain the community through the difficult months ahead. It was a testament to the enduring ripple effect of kindness. That one open door could inspire countless others to open their own. And through it all, the barn remained a place of refuge, not just from the storms of weather, but from the storms of life. Its walls held the stories of survival and renewal, of loss and love, of strangers becoming family. Clara and Samuel's journey reminded all who gathered there that while the West was a land of hardship, it was also a land of heart, a place where courage, compassion, and community could carve out a legacy that would endure far longer than the harshest winter or the driest summer. As the harshness of the drought finally began to ease and the land showed signs of recovery, a new chapter unfolded in the story of Clara's barn. The community that had been forged through shared struggle now turned their focus toward rebuilding not just their farms, but their lives. The barn, once merely a refuge, became a place of learning and growth. Clara and Samuel worked tirelessly to teach skills they'd learned through hardship: how to tend crops in lean seasons, how to mend what was broken, and how to carry hope forward even when the future seemed uncertain. Samuel, who had once been a man on the brink of death, now found himself standing tall as a symbol of resilience and renewal. He took to mentoring younger men and boys, passing on the lessons of patience, strength, and kindness that had saved him. His presence inspired those who had yet to find their footing in the unforgiving landscape, reminding them that survival was not just a physical challenge, but a test of spirit. Every word he spoke, every hand he extended, carried the weight of experience and the light of hope. Clara, too, found her own renewal, not in solitude, but in the vibrant life that surrounded her. The farm, once a quiet sanctuary, pulsed with the energy of community. Neighbors gathered for celebrations, shared meals, and prayers, weaving a tapestry of connection that reached far beyond the fences. Clara's open heart had drawn them together, and in return, they lifted her, reminding her that even the strongest need support. Her courage had sparked a movement, but her kindness had built a home. One crisp autumn evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with shades of amber and rose, the town gathered around Clara's barn for a feast, a celebration not just of harvest, but of survival and unity. Stories were shared by firelight, laughter echoed against the wooden walls, and the burdens of the past seemed lighter in the warmth of belonging. It was a moment that crystallized everything the barn had come to represent: hope born from hardship, and a community strengthened through compassion. Yet, even as joy filled the air, Clara and Samuel knew the West would always demand resilience. The seasons would turn, storms would come, and new challenges would arise. But the foundation they had built, rooted in kindness, courage, and the simple choice to open a door, would endure. Their journey was a testament to the power of one act to change many lives, a reminder that even the wildest frontier humanity's greatest strength lies in the hands and hearts willing to care. Time continued its relentless march, but the legacy of Clara's barn stood timeless, etched into the landscape and the lives it touched. The barn remained open, a sanctuary for the weary and the hopeful alike, its doors a symbol of unwavering compassion in a world too often hardened by hardship. Generations passed through its threshold, each leaving their own stories behind, weaving a living history of kindness that no storm could erase. Samuel, now older and weathered by years of labor and love, carried on Clara's mission with quiet dignity. He held the same belief she had, that true strength comes not from steel or firepower, but from the willingness to stand beside those in need. His hands, once trembling in the cold, were steady and sure, guiding the next generation toward a future shaped by empathy and resilience. In his eyes, one could see the reflection of every soul the barn had saved. Clara's spirit lived on in every act of kindness that blossomed from her example. Though she was no longer seen walking the fields, her presence was felt in the laughter of children, the strength of neighbors, and the unbreakable bonds forged through shared trials. The barn, with its weathered beams and glowing hearth, was more than wood and stone. It was a testament to the enduring power of human connection. As the sun set over the endless prairie, casting long shadows and golden light, the story of the frozen man and the barn that saved him remained a beacon. It whispered to all who dared to listen, that even in the harshest places, a single open door can ignite a wildfire of hope. And that kindness, once given, has the power to transform not just one life, but an entire community. So when the cold wind blows and the nights grow long, remember Clara's barn. Remember that in a world often defined by hardship and solitude, the greatest courage is found in the simple choice to open your heart and shelter another. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of compassion become the strongest legacies, lighting the way through darkness for generations yet to come. The story of Clara and the frozen man she took in is more than just a tale of survival. It is a testament to the power of one act of kindness to change countless lives. From the moment she opened her barn door, a ripple was set into motion, touching hearts and inspiring a community to rediscover its compassion and strength. This isn't merely a story of a cold night and a warm fire, but a powerful reminder that in even the harshest conditions, humanity can find its light. Throughout their journey, Clara and Samuel showed us that courage is not always about grand gestures or heroic deeds. Sometimes, it is found in the quiet choices, the decision to open your door when others turn away, to share your warmth when the world grows cold. These moments, small but profound, create connections that transcend hardship, weaving a fabric of hope strong enough to hold an entire community together through the storms of life. As we reflect on their story, we are called to ask ourselves, what doors are we willing to open? Whose hands might we hold when they are frozen and alone? The West was a land of rugged survival, but Clara's barn teaches us that survival is not merely enduring. It is choosing to care, to heal, and to build something lasting with others. In our own lives, the greatest strength lies not in what we keep, but in what we give. If this story stirred something in you, a flicker of hope, a call to kindness, remember that you too hold the power to be a light in someone's darkest hour. The ripple of compassion begins with one person, one moment, one choice. And sometimes, that choice can surround not just a single barn, but entire towns with the gifts of love, understanding, and community. If you felt moved by this journey, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you open your barn door to today? Give this video a like if it warmed your heart, and consider subscribing for more stories that remind us all of the quiet power of kindness. Together, we can keep the fire burning and inspire others to open their doors, one act of compassion at a time.